Hi everybody, thank you so much for coming out to support our continued effort to change the wrongful death laws in BC. This is an especially difficult time for me, with tomorrow being Mother's Day and without my only child, Natasha. The truth is that I shouldn't have to come here today and try to get Attorney-General David Eby to finally take action by modernizing the wrongful death laws in BC. This has been going on for 25 years. It gets embarrassing how long this has been going on. I'm one of many families who want the laws to change so future wrongful deaths in BC will have accountability and justice. Living without justice or accountability for a loved one is a continual journey of re-traumatizing. Wrongful death is an uncomfortable conversation. Nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to think this could happen to their family member, but if you know any of the families here, wrongful death has already affected you. You're going to hear from some of the family members today. One of them is Emily, who signed the petition for for Natasha's wrongful death, and then tragically lost her newborn son due to negligence just over a year later. Another wrongful death with no accountability. So here's how things are going to unfold today. We will have speakers, and then we will walk to Attorney-General David Eby's office. From there, we will put photos up of our loved ones and lay roses in their memory. This is a symbol of our love for our loved ones, a reminder to David Eby that he needs to do as he's been promising for years, and to the standard that that's been asked of him. Certainly since Natasha died in 2020, he said he'd take action. There's been nothing. We will be led on the walk by bagpiper Rich Nichol, who knew Natasha personally and wanted to get involved. So thank you so much, Rich. I would like to invite Elaine Penny up, who is going to be reading on behalf of Michael James Penny. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Elaine Penny. My son is Michael James Penny. Michael is the president of the BC Wrongful Death Law Reform Society. He asked me to read you a brief speech to welcome you all to this event. Hello everyone, thank you all so much for being here. I'm sorry that I couldn't make it here today. Our society is comprised of a tireless group of dedicated volunteers. Some have now been at this for over 25 years. We've united a small group of grieving families with no recourse and no voice into a huge movement of courageous people speaking truth to power. Over 16,000 British Columbians to date have petitioned their members of the Legislative Assembly, the Attorney General, and the Premier. Our member families have provided dozens of interviews to the media who have shone a light on this issue and helped give families a voice. These families and many supportive members of the public have also conducted numerous meetings with their MLAs. Vancouver City Councillor Pete Fry, whom you'll hear from shortly at the local government level, drove an initiative through the Union of BC Municipalities to recommend to the provincial government to modernize its wrongful death laws. There are so many other generous people who've donated their time and money to this cause. Without all of this incredible initiative and wonderful support, this movement would not be possible. I can't thank you enough. We now have incredible momentum, and collectively, our voices are only becoming louder. Years ago, after experiencing my own family tragedy involving my dad, I found other families who've experienced similar in the BC Wrongful Death Law Reform Society. I found renewed meaning and purpose and a way to right the wrongs on behalf of my dad and every other family in BC that has been affected by this terribly unjust and antiquated law. BC is one of the last places in the entire developed world yet to modernize its wrongful death laws. Ontario did it in 1990. Even Yukon did it in 2014. We put together a dedicated team of volunteer law students. We did the research on every piece of wrongful death legislation across Canada and elsewhere in the world. We cherry-picked all the best aspects and drafted the Wrongful Death Accountability Act, which we thereafter had reviewed by some of the best minds in the legal community. This new legislation would replace the BC Family Compensation Act, or as we call it, the Family Non-Compensation Act. It would ensure that no wrongdoer can escape accountability, that all families, no matter the financial status of their wrongfully killed loved one, could access justice through the civil courts. We could have the best legislation in Canada and be the province with the most legal protections for the individual in valuing human life. We handed this to the Attorney-General, Minister David Eby, on a silver platter. All the work has been done for him. Last we heard, Minister Eby and the bureaucrats in Victoria were trying to figure out how much this will cost the province to modernize these laws. This will likely affect the legislation put forth, so the provincial government can figure out a way to either escape or limit their accountability rather than looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that with safer roads, safer hospitals, and with more responsible corporations, we could actually save the province and insurers money by preventing wrongful death and other injury in the first place. This could be accomplished with legislation that actually provides meaningful deterrence and incentivizes proactive safety policy. We can save lives. Today is a very special day because we're going to demonstrate to the entire province just how much our loved ones mean to us and just how important it is that this critical work gets done. Thank you all so much for being here. Your support means the world to us. Sincerely, Michael James Penny, President, the BC Wrongful Death Law Reform Society. Thank you, everyone.
Hi everyone, I can't promise I won't weep through this, but I'll do the best that I can. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. Meet our beautiful daughter Chelsea, that died of the wrongful death in 2016. Chelsea was a bright, beautiful woman at the age of 23, employed by the school, a teacher's assistant. She decided to go out with some friends on a party bus to celebrate a birthday. All we thought was, hey, that's a safe way to go, you know, not driving, you're not having one or two and gambling, you're doing it the safe way. So she said, yeah, I think I'm gonna go. I'm like, okay. Before getting to the destination, something went wrong. The last turn of where they were supposed to be, Chelsea disappeared, the people said, on the bus. The people said the door swallowed her, and they're trying to get the bus driver to stop. 2 blocks later, they finally got the bus driver to stop. They found Chelsea dead on the road 2 blocks back, run over by the vehicle. VPD did an extensive 7-month inspection and found out that after actually hiring a specialist to come in for that bus door because they knew nothing about it. And he found out there was a part put into the bus that shouldn't have been there, that was put in backwards, and all the safety latches were taken off of the door. So when it closed, not even the safety was proper on the bus. After we found out of this and being totally broken with the knock on the door saying your daughter's dead, I said, screw you, I know where my daughter is. She's doing it safe. Found out that that bus had been off for a good 5 years because of that door. And they just kept on trying to fix it instead of being mandated to replace the whole door closure. And on it went. CVSE put a sticker on the bus, and away she went, and 4 months later, Chelsea died through that door. Please find the company. Wow, my daughter's life was worth $1,300. I spoke to many lawyers. After hearing that ICBC said, well, you can't sue, and I said, screw you, I can sue. My daughter was worth something. And they said, no, you cannot. And I went to 20 lawyers because I thought they were all frickin' lying, that I couldn't civilly sue the wrongdoers that were accountable for my daughter's death. I had all the paperwork, I had the inspection, I had everything I needed to slam it on them and say, you son of a gun, you took my daughter's life. Sorry, but that's not how it works. They said, sorry, due to the old, over 176-year-old law, you can't sue. So here we are, broken, not being able to get accountability for my daughter in any way. And it's not just her age, it's the elderly. It's the disabled it affects. And that's not right. Give us our time in court. Like, frick, don't just tell me that. No, if I want to spend 10, 40, 100 grand on a lawyer, give me my frickin' time in court. But they don't let you do that, and that is not right. Sorry, I'm all over the place. So here we are today, pushing for Family Compensation Act to the Wrongful Death Act. Let's call it what it is. It's a wrongful death, a negligent death, and somebody has to pay when it happens in your family. We hope with everybody here will join us and call their MLAs and send letters out to make change. We need to be out there. We need to be more vocal, make more noise, because Minister Eby told me 6 years ago, Shelley, it's changing. Things will change. We're still here, Eby. Where are you? I really want to thank you so much for your time and for coming, and thank you.
I'll read because otherwise I'll be all over the place. Thank you. I'm Dr. Sharon Anderson. I hold 2 masters in nursing and a doctorate from Columbia University, New York. It's my personal experience with tragedy and my research and development on bereavement, complicated grieving, intersectoral discrimination in healthcare, and patient advocacy that bring me here today. Shirley May Lamb was my same-gender life partner for 24 years. She was an intelligent, vivacious, active woman who loved life and wished to continue doing so, as noted in an advance directive. In 2015, she was admitted to hospital for back pain, rendering her unable to rise from bed. She was given physio, out on passes, and fit for discharge within 2 weeks. However, the doctor said, no, we're going to wait. This went on for a month and a half. I was told by the doctor she was less deserving of care and compassion than a married man with young children. And I was told she was too costly and had no worth, no quality of life as a disabled person. I witnessed stealth euthanasia being done and demanded her release. When I got to the door to get her out with me, I was blocked by this very same physician. This way. No, you're not getting out. I said, get out of our way. He was then backed by nurses and security came. And for that whole time, we could not get her out. Shirley was given 2 injections, rendering her unresponsive from her former state of complete alertness. 10 hours she was left, suffering, trying to breathe, with her eyes wide open as she died. And the nurse handed me a suction catheter to say, why don't you do this? Not a single physical assessment was done by this physician in 1.5 months of hospitalization. I was devastated and there was zero accountability. For 7 years now, I've gone office to office, dismissed, ignored, and at times berated for wasting people's time. This is some of the sample of where I've gone and been sent to and back and forth, and that's the array of paperwork that was sent out years. Excuse me. The government failed us and just wants me to go away. The poster is the visual depiction of trying to get justice. Medical errors are the third leading cause of deaths in Canada. Every professional here working in healthcare has a code of ethics and responsibilities to follow. We have professional associations that are supposed to monitor things. We have commissions that are supposed to monitor things, and yet we have what's happened here today. These mothers here today are seeking justice for the wrongful deaths of their children. One never, ever gets over or moves on from the loss of a child. The child may be newborn, a teen, a young adult, like lovely Natasha. The death of a child has been related to the experience of depression, unresolved grief, the broken heart syndrome, PTSD, anxiety disorders, marital breakups, sleep deprivation, persistent questioning of guilt, what should I have done, suicides, and an inability to hold jobs because you can't get over this. Other children suffer. Parents are trying to nurture their other children when they have them, and they can't give what they don't have. Or they're hyper-vigilant, terrified something's going to happen with this other child. Grandparents suffer as well. It's a loss of future anticipated wonderful times. Every single milestone, every innocent query by a stranger in the store, do you have children? That's a heartbreak. It's a trigger to suffering. Mothers and families need help. In summary, professional codes and responsibilities on paper are not enough to achieve accountability. We have had already 2 books written by coroners proving that nothing is done and we need help. Mr. Horgan and Mr. Eby modernized these acquainted BC wrongful death laws to compensate these mothers for their children's deaths as a start to a quest for accountability, and now better care will follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So I'm here to tell the tragic chain of events that led to the death of my beautiful daughter Natasha at age 29. Due to blatant hospital negligence and lack of standard care. Look how beautiful she was. Natasha went to Lionsgate Hospital initially on October 2nd, 2020 for an abscess, which was drained. She was sent home with pain medication but no antibiotics. 1 week later on October 9th, she went to walk-in clinic as she was having pain on her side. The walk-in clinic told her to go to Lionsgate ER as the doctor thought it could be appendicitis. I went to try to see Natasha at Lionsgate ER but was told by a nurse that I couldn't go in due to COVID and that Natasha was an adult, basically telling me that there's no need for me to be there. Natasha contacted me later that evening and we went to pick her up and take her home. She was told that she had swollen lymph nodes. They would go away in a couple of days, gave her pain medication. I trusted the hospital, thought that they did a thorough job and that things would get better. The following morning on October 10th, Natasha called me crying that she was in more pain, worse than the day before, her leg and stomach area swollen. I told her to go back to the hospital and was torn because I knew I couldn't go into the hospital. She called a friend who drove her up there and Her friend later said that Natasha could hardly walk into the hospital. If at any time I'd thought Natasha was in danger, I would have gone to the hospital, but given what the hospital said the day before, I thought this was something they would figure out and was manageable. Natasha spent the majority of the day in the hospital, messaged me at 1 a.m. to say they had released her, and she took a taxi home. I thought they'd provided proper care because they released her, and was glad she was home safe. But what the doctor had done instead was just doubled her pain medication, sent her home, and failed to see that she had life-threatening infection, failed to do vitals, and this doctor is apparently a sepsis specialist. Natasha called me the next morning, October 11th, struggling to talk. I told her to call 911, which she did. She waited outside of her house for the ambulance to arrive and was taken back to Lionsgate Hospital. I was allowed this time to see her. She was struggling to breathe, and I calmly told her just to relax. It was the calmest I've ever been, and I'm actually really glad that I was, because I would hate to have her sense my panic. I didn't want to stay in the room because they were working on her and bringing her oxygen and stuff. And honestly, I thought I'd see her again after she was admitted. I stood outside the glass room and made a heart shape with my hands and looked at her. Shortly after, the ICU doctor called and said that they didn't know what was wrong with Natasha. I said, could it have anything to do with the infection, the abscess before? And he said he didn't think so, but that was new information and they thought it might be COVID. Natasha was later put on a ventilator to help her breathing, and she never came back. Her kidneys were shutting down and she was on dialysis. The doctors had called me to do an exploratory surgery, which I approved, and during surgery she had cardiac arrest and died. What happened to Natasha was treatable and preventable, but due to substandard care, she wasn't given a fighting chance. Unfortunately, what happened to Natasha is not uncommon. Nurses had apparently taken stress leave because they were so traumatized by the complete and utter disastrous health care provided to my daughter. The tragic loss of Natasha has affected so many people. She was so fun, full of life and adventurous, with a loving spirit. Everyone told us to sue the hospital. Like, honestly, I thought that you could do that in BC. I did. I didn't know anything different. The doctors, the hospital, there would be, a lawsuit, like criminal, everything, because I just didn't know. Even the nurses said that the hospital would be sued, but that's not possible in BC. There is no accountability, and Natasha deserved her day in court. As we found out, there is no laws to protect victims and families. If a loved one dies due to negligence, there's nowhere to go, and you're re-traumatized over and over by the blatant lack of accountability or justice for victims. There is no one to sue, which means no reason for anything to change. People say, well, this shouldn't be about money. They fail to see that financial compensation as well as court action is the answer, as this ensures companies hire and train staff to provide proper care, and that companies are held at higher standards. This is prevention for future wrongful deaths. It's truly shocking that this is our reality in BC. There is no system in place to hold wrongdoers accountable. There is no justice. I'm here today with other grieving family members to ask that you join us in demanding the BC government be a leader in wrongful death laws, and to make the trauma of losing a loved one to wrongful death in the future be less painful by allowing a path to justice and accountability. This is the very least our elected leaders in government should do for us. Thank you so much. I'd like to invite Emily to come up, please.
First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out here. I know it's a beautiful day out here, and I'm sure that there are better places that we would love to be, but unfortunately, we're here. I'm going to be reading from here. Shock, anger, confusion. How can this happen? How can my baby boy be gone? I did everything right. I took my vitamins, I ate well, I didn't sleep on my back, I caressed my belly, I spoke to him, I sang to him, I prayed to him. I was so excited for his arrival. How could you be gone when I did everything I could to protect you? My boy, my son, and as I am a cervical cancer survivor, he was also my miracle. Our son, Nathaniel Achilles Nicholas Addison, died from a traumatic delivery. He was a healthy baby boy throughout my pregnancy. My water broke at 37 weeks on February 2nd at 4 a.m. I went to the hospital and was sent home twice, loaded on morphine, which has been proven to delay labor. The third time I went back, I begged them to stay. Due to a lack of staff, they waited 36 hours to induce me. Once the doctor finally came to see me, she insisted on a natural birth, despite my request for a C-section. After her insistence, I attempted to push for 3.5 hours. The doctor then told me she was vacuuming him out. I didn't know what that meant, but I trusted her. She attempted to vacuum him out for 25 minutes, at which point the vacuum came off his head 3 times. They waited 4.5 hours of having me push in total before they finally did an emergency C-section. At that point, it's 40 hours of labor. The baby was so stuck in my pubic bone from the vacuum that the doctor admitted she had to apply a lot of pressure to get him out. When they were able to get my son out of me at 8:45 p.m., he didn't cry. The nurses put him on a respirator and told my partner and I that he was breathing on his own and they were going to take him to the NICU as a precaution. They later came back and told us 2.5 hours later that they noticed a skull bleed and were sending him to Children's Hospital. This was at 1 a.m. He died in my arms at 5 a.m., 8.5 hours after he was born. I was told by the pediatrician that he died from a traumatic delivery in 2022. Multiple organ failure due to lack of oxygen and a skull bleed. He also had a heart attack due to the stress of the delivery. My son Nathaniel, which means gift of God, was killed due to a lack of proper medical decisions, a lack of information given to us, and a lack of care from the doctor. The Hippocratic Oath has long been forgotten by our medical community. We understand the challenges faced by medical staff in these unprecedented COVID times. We understand the staff shortages and the long hours. We understand the difficulty. However, these issues were around long before COVID and should not serve as an excuse for our loss. When one wants to become a nurse or a doctor, working under stress and strain is implied. If one is unable to do so, they should not be working in that field. The doctor who was in charge of me insisted on me giving birth naturally, ignoring all the red flags during my birth, as well as not providing us risks and consequences. She should not be working in this field. The nurses that sent me home multiple times and pumped me full of morphine should not be working in this field. One wonders if the shortcuts taken and the lack of judgment is due to medical employees being overworked or simply poorly trained in their field. Currently in BC, the value of a human life is measured only by the deceased future's lost income. This archaic legislation denies families justice for the wrongful death of their children, elderlies, and disabled family members. How is BC the last province to make steps towards innovation and basic human rights? We as Canadians pride ourselves for a socialized medical system. We should serve as an example to the world. Instead, we are provided with second-rate care in a first-world country. We trust our doctors. We trust our nurses to have our best interests at heart. We trust them to put their egos aside and help us heal. We trust them to bring our children into this world. We now trust that the government will do the right thing and help bring this injustice to light and work towards bettering our medical system. The only way to make changes in this case, as well as all the others, is to allow for the law to change and give children, the elderly, and the disabled a voice. We should be allowed to hold those in charge accountable for their actions. Otherwise, how do we move towards bettering this broken system? The doctors, nurses, and the hospital should not be given an automatic free pass when their actions led to a tragic and avoidable death. We expected to bring our newborn son home, which we will never be able to due to the decisions taken by this hospital. All I have to say is rest in peace, Nathaniel.
Thank you, Emily. The sad irony is that Emily signed the petition for Natasha's wrongful death in hopes that the government would take some action, and had they done that, perhaps Emily could have had some justice, because now she is part of our group, unfortunately. That's the reality, is we don't know who the next wrongful death's going to be.
I'm a lawyer. I'm about to retire. I've been working on this issue for over 20 years, and you people are the agents of change. We can't do it, but you can, collectively, through joining in their name, through donating, through petitions, through applying political pressure to change what is an outrageous law. When people in our society wrongfully cause others to be harmed, we hold them accountable for the harms and losses they cause. Unless someone causes a death, then in BC, our laws arbitrarily distinguish between people on the basis of their income. BC's Family Compensation Act doesn't recognize the loss of a loved one, only that person's income. So if the person doesn't have an income when they are accidentally killed, if they are a child or a grandparent, if they are someone with disabilities or a student or an at-home mother, there is no legal recourse for their death. And this is wrong. The only way to honor all people, whoever they are, and keep our society safe and prevent repeated mistakes, deadly mistakes, is to recognize the loss of everyone who dies as a result of someone's wrongful conduct and hold that wrongdoer accountable. Our society has drafted a law that will hold people who cause wrongful death accountable regardless of the status of the victim. But so far, the government, BC government, has taken no action to change the law. And this needs to change now. Thank you.
Hi, folks. My name is Pete Fry. I'm a city councilor here in Vancouver. And as we traditionally do, I do want to acknowledge we're on the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. And as I make that acknowledgement, I also need to acknowledge that, in fact, it's Indigenous people in this province who are disproportionately impacted by the failure to update our wrongful death legislation, and we know this as a fact. And it just highlights and underscores the deeply discriminatory nature of wrongful death legislation in our province today. I also want to acknowledge the grief and the pain that you're sharing today. And I know you're all here for someone that you cared about and that you've lost. And it's profound through your grief, the work that you're doing, and it's so critically important. I'm an elected city councilor. I pay a lot of time, I pay attention to issues, and I'm deeply involved. But when I saw my friend Anne's Facebook posts filled with grief and pictures of her beautiful, smart, accomplished daughter, and there was a whiff of scandal in him amongst the grief, and so I reached out, and what's going on, and she explained what happened, and I'm like, well, geez, Anne, get a lawyer. And that's when she told me that she couldn't get a lawyer. No lawyer would touch this because of wrongful death legislation in our province, and I was shocked. Here I am, an elected official. I should know that this failure to amend an antiquated law is so deeply impacting people in my city and my province. So we worked on a motion, and I brought it to my colleagues at City Council. And in fact, our staff were so piqued and concerned about that. It was them who brought to my attention the issue about Indigenous people being disproportionately impacted, and the work that Mary Ellen Trapella-Fond has done in this field, and the recommendations in the spirit of reconciliation that we need to amend this law, if nothing more, from the Indigenous perspective and from a reconciliation and the Truth and Reconciliation recommendations. And so as we prepared this motion, and I brought it to my colleagues, and I guess this is where I want to kind of bring in a sense of hope. As I brought this to my colleagues in the City Council, they were shocked. Everyone was shocked. And we passed it unanimously, a motion to bring this to the Union of BC Municipalities. We brought it to the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, where again, mayors and councillors from across the Lower Mainland were shocked to hear the extent and the failure of wrongful death legislation in our province. And then we brought it to the province, to the UBCM, and it passed. It struggled a little bit because many folks said that it was really outside of our jurisdiction, that as local elected politicians, we weren't really supposed to get involved in this kind of thing. I disagree, and we argued that, and we had a tougher time, but it passed there as well. And it went to the province, and we did have a commitment from the minister that this would be something that would be addressed in this term of government. But I want to say just that it was the advocacy of folks like you, it was the advocacy of In Their Name that actually compelled all of us to act. And I know it's tough, the work you're doing, and it feels like you're pushing a rock up a hill, but you are making a difference. You completely shifted the perspective at the City of Vancouver. You completely shifted the perspective in the governments of the Lower Mainland. You completely shifted the perspective of mayors and councillors across British Columbia. And that's just in the matter of a couple of years. So I know it's tough, but I really, and I'm with you. And I told Ann earlier that if I can help in other ways, obviously we passed what we could in a legislative sense, but I'm also here to help in an organizational capacity as you guys need. And I just want you to have some hope that you are pushing up a rock up a hill, but I'm so hopeful, and I feel that we're at the top of that hill, and we will get meaningful change in their name, and for all of you who've lost loved ones that are here today. And I thank you for sharing this space with me.
Really loud. I love the pipes. I love the pipes. Okay.
Are we going now or no?
Good. So if everybody can just stay together. There's no crossing, like no major crossing. We'll find out.
And are we going this way?
Yeah, we're gonna go that way and then turn right.
And then come back around.
And then right again. Yeah. Okay, guys. Let's do it. Shelley first. No, it's Rita. You're first. So I think what we'll do is kind of step away from the window here and we'll start. Okay, so first we're going with Rita.
Okay.
So let's step aside and let Rita do hers first. Yeah, are you doing Amazing Grace? Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, thank you. Take down the bottom of the pictures and see if there's any. So maybe we'll just take a picture of some of the family members around the photos. Any other pictures to go out, guys? Mom. Oh my God, I can't look at the baby. Rich, do you have one more song you could play at all? Thank you.
Amazing Grace.
Anything you all we can do is hope that Attorney-General David Eby will make the changes that are needed to protect BC citizens from wrongful death. I really appreciate you all taking time out of your day to support us and the loss of our loved ones. Thank you everybody for coming. Not too long. Not too long. Thanks everybody. This means a lot to us. Oh, look at the flowers, are so beautifully done. Very powerful thing. Thank Oh, thank you, sweetie.
The abuse of what happened to my dad. He was starved, he was neglected.
That's what they did to my mom.
And his bed sore ripped his spine. And from there, they said either he will live or
Give me that. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I have more. I'm saving this tomorrow's Mother's Day, and Tasha would want me to have roses. Yeah. I'm mad. Something needs to come out of the stuff.
I mean, I didn't beat it easy. I went to my MLA said, yeah, it's been given mercy. Committed to just continuing to bring it up. Thank you. You're sweet. I should probably move that up there. Sorry. Leave it somewhere. Yeah, we can do both.
That's my grandmother in the center right there with the blue blouse. She was hip due to medical negligence, and unfortunately, I know different circumstances, but unfortunately, hopefully,
yeah, he told me they're bringing, little tiny scotch into the hut.
I didn't know. Now I would call
And you only can say so much.
well, that's just it.
Should we imagine how they went to town with this?
Huh? Yeah.
Is that girl that woman's daughter?
No. No, that's a different
That's
girl.
David teacher.
And I'm so glad that the issue of deterrence was brought up too, because it's so
That's what I
easy-
thought. Yeah, this
exactly.
is about money. Because if they have to pay out, they're going to want better staff, better regulations, better safety for everybody.
Because unfortunately, money talks. That's
Yeah.
unfortunately
The people use it as, oh, they're just after money. That's not what this
I
is
would-
about. Money changes. It holds accountability. Yeah.
My grandmother was killed by medical negligence, and unfortunately, with your daughter and in my grandmother's case, the elderly, it's so easy to say, oh,
Oh
she
yeah,
would have died
she's
anyway.
old anyway, whatever. That's not what this. That's really sweet. Yeah, you're awesome. Thank you so much. I think this really brings people.
At the end of the day,
Yeah, I'm